Our session today, we'll look at production and consumer theory. Production and consumer theory. So, consumer theory basically looks at how individuals like you and me, within our limited income, um, are able to ration within the limited budget to consuming goods and services. So, this important topic in economics helps to provide a systematic understanding on why we behave in a certain way, on how income and prices will affect our income consumption, on how our individual demand curves are derived. So by the end of this lecture, we must be able to understand the different pricing strategies that are effective and also how to predict the demand responses, because this is mainly about understanding the human behavior. We should also be able to um, segment markets by income, by preferences. So we're going to look at a key concept under consumer choices, which is utility. In your own understanding, what is utility? What do you understand by utility? Utility measures consumption. Utility measures a level of satisfaction. So under consumer choice, we are going to rest on the key assumptions that will underlie. For this to make sense, these assumptions must hold. So these are the exceptions that this theory must rest on. And these assumptions will allow us as economists to model our behavior mathematically to capturing the essence of decision making. So the first assumption is that of rationality, assuming that consumers are assumed to be rational, meaning they want more for less. They want to maximize satisfaction subject to um, budget constraints. So rationality does not imply perfection, but rather the choices are consistent with their preferences. So you want to maximize the budget to get the best value possible. The second assumption is that of preferences, that these preferences are complete. So for any two bundles of goods, a consumer can say whether they prefer one or the other or they're indifferent. For instance, if we have two apples and one banana, you can have one apple and two bananas. So the consumer can rank them in that order. The third assumption is that preferences are transient. So meaning a consumer will choose to prefer A to B and B to C, and they must prefer A to C in that order. So this will ensure consistency in decision making. The other assumption here is that more is better. So consumers will prefer more of a good to less. They will assume that it provides a positive utility. So for instance, more chocolate will provide higher satisfaction until health or diet concerns are coming. So these assumptions are very important. The other assumption is that of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. So you can consume more of one good and you're willing to give up on the other. So I use graphical illustrations, but as a consumer will consume more of good A, they will be willing to give up less of good B to obtain additional unit of A. So to illustrate this, we will be using curves called indifference curves. So these indifference curves will help us understand the principle of utility. So these are lines that are joining points that have the same what? Same satisfaction. So this is indifference curve 1, indifference curve 2, indifference curve 3. So these are parallel to each other, they don't crisscross. So satisfaction is maximized at a point where the budget line will kiss the indifference curve. So at the point B, this is a point that we call the marginal rate of substitution. It's a point where you maximize utility. At this point, our marginal utility of X over the price of X is equal to the marginal utility of Y over the price of Y. So this is the optimum bundle where an individual wants to maximize their satisfaction. So these have a rational or transitive arrangement. So indifference curve what? 3 is greater than indifference curve 2, which is greater than indifference curve 1. So meaning indifference curve 3 is the highest satisfaction if you followed by this one, then followed by this one. Now, ever the most optimal is indifference curve number 2 because it is within the budget line. A is below, you're being uneconomical, and C, you're above. So consumer choices are very important because they typify how you and I behave. So to measure satisfaction, we use utility. Utility is simply the satisfaction or the happiness that a consumer will derive from consuming goods and services. So we have total utility, which is total satisfaction from consuming a certain quantity of goods. And marginal, anything marginal is additional. So for you, when you're consuming something, you're assumed to have a rational behavior. You want to consume more. So the utility is like this. You're eating guavas. The first ones will be hungry. Okay, hungry, then at some point you increase at a decreasing rate. At some point, you will then start declining. So this follows what we call the law of diminishing returns. The law of diminishing marginal utility is as you add one extra unit of a good, the additional from each begins to fall. So the principle of marginal utility follows that law. I repeat, utility is simply the measure of satisfaction in utils. It measures how happy we are about a particular good. So we have total utility, which is the total uh, utility from consuming a good. Marginal utility is additional utility that you get from consuming additional units. So if our total utility, for instance, we have quantities, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then you have total utility, you're starting at 3, 4, 4, then maybe 2. So the marginal utility is the additional utility that you're having. So from 3 to 4, we added 1. From 4 to 4 is 0. From 4 to 2 is -2. So this follows the law of diminishing returns that as you add one more unit, it will increase at a decreasing rate. So indifference curves are the curves that will show you these satisfactions. So the indifference curves have a lot of properties that we need to know. Number one is that they're downsloping. Number two is that they're convex to the origin. This will fulfill the diminishing imaginary tensors scale. Then they don't intersect. And the indifference curve on the far right is higher than the ones on the left. So indifference curve 3 is the highest, then indifference curve number 2, then indifference curve number 1. But the optimal bundle occurs when it touches the budget line. That is where our indifference curve is maximized. Are we together so far?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we now go to, we proceed. So we are still looking at consumer behavior. There's what we call a budget line. A budget line is simply showing a combination of affordable goods that one can um, consume within their budget. It's given by the price of good A over quantity of good A plus price of good B times quantity of good B should be equal to income. Other books will say price of good X times X plus price of good Y times Y, it will be equal to the income, which is given by I, which is given by M or Y. So this is what is called the budget line. A budget line. So a budget line is very easy to formulate. Suppose the price of good X is 10 kwacha, and the price of good Y is 20 kwacha, and the income is 100 kwacha. So what becomes the budget line? We substitute in this budget. So where there is price of X, you put 10X. The X remains as it is. Where there is price of Y, you put what? 20Y. And here you put 100. So the way we're sketching it, where there's X, what is the intercept? There's 10. So 10 into 100, it will cut the X as 10. On the 20 into 100, it will be at 5. So the budget line here, therefore, we cut the X at what? The X will be on the horizontal and the Y will be here. So this is a budget line. You cut the Y at 5 and the X at 10. So this is how the X or Y plane looks like. Okay, this is how the X or Y plane looks like. So the budget line simply shows a combination of how goods can be spent. Budget line is very important because it shows the available um, combinations of two goods that a consumer can afford. So the slope of a budget line is simply given by price of good A over price of good B. The slope shows you the ratio of two goods. So the effect of these changes can show you if income increases by 1 kwacha, what will happen? If there's a change in income, what effect will there be? So the slope is simply the gradient. The gradient is given by price of what? With X over price of what? With Y. Negative. So slope shows you the impact of an increase in income on consumption. So it's important to understand these effects. Okay. So what effects are we going to have? If income increases, the budget line will shift to the right. If income reduces, the budget line will shift inwards. If the price of one good goes up or down, there'll be a rotation. So these are the two effects that we're going to have. So if income increases, so this is our original income. So to the right, it means that income has what? Increased. To the left, it means that income has what? Reduced. So this is causing a shift. In our previous class, we are talking about shifts. So the shifts here, this income. So here to be an increase what? In income and a decrease here in income. But if the price of, in this case, for instance, let's show the price of good X is what? 10 kwacha. What happens if we increase the price of good X maybe to 50 kwacha? Then you're going to demand less of this food. So let's put it here. So instead of writing 10x plus 20y, our new equation will be what? 50x plus 20y. Are we together? Let's go to 100. So what will happen on the y? The y will remain the same because 20 into 100 is 5. So y will still be here. We'll still buy 5 units of y. But x, 50 into 100 is 2. So you're going to buy less of y. So here, we'll tilt inward. So whenever there is an increase in the price, there's always what we call a rotation or a tilt. So if that price becomes higher, you tilt inwards. If that price of a good becomes lower, you tilt outwards. So this very equation, suppose instead of 10 kwacha, they have made this good X cheaper. It's now 5 kwacha. So the equation will change from 10x plus 20, it will be 5x plus 20, 20y is equal to 100. The y again will still be the same because when we divide 20 into 100, we get 5. But 5 into 100, it will give what? 20. So it will tilt. I'm using a dotted line. It will tilt outward. So meaning you're going to get a what? A 20. So instead of consuming the original 5 units, you consume 20 units of what? Of good X. So this is what happens even in our normal consumer behavior. Any questions at this point, please ask.
You'll get there.
All right. So these movements in the graphs are very important. I'll repeat if you're behind because once you lose this point, it will be difficult to really understand what is following. So,
Okay, I think I lost it some after the equation
mhm.
on this equation you gave 10x plus 20y is equal to 100. How to substitute and find it, I was okay. But on the plotting, I got a little bit confused.
Okay, meaning you had missed our class in the morning. So our income equation is simply given by the price of good X times X plus the price of good Y times Y. So whenever you're plotting any equation, as long as the letters are on one side, it's very easy to plot them. So here if you have 100 is equal to, if we're told that good X is 10 kwacha and good Y is 20 kwacha and the income and our income is 100 kwacha. So what becomes our budget line? Here you're okay, you just substitute here. The price of X is what? 10x. And the price of Y is what? 20y. So here we're together, right?
So, yes.
Now to sketch this is very easy. Just look at this number which is here. I play which one? Any. So 10 into 100 is 10. We divide this. We are dividing all of them into the constant. So if we're going to go to the x plane here, on the x, we'll cut at 10. Then again, on the y, we divide into 100. So 20 into 100, what we get? 5. Put 5 there. And you join the two lines. Okay, that is part A. Part B, they've asked you, suppose the income is increased from 100 kwacha to 200. The second income is 200. What will happen on the sketch? So we'll rewrite our equation. Our equation will instead be 200 is equal to 10x plus 20, 20, 20y. So can you tell me why we did cut the x-axis? We divide the number for x. What number is there? 10, right?
10, 10,
10
10
into
years.
200, 20. What number is on the y? It's 20. 20 into 200 is 10. So I use for illustration purposes the same graph. So an increase in income is causing a shift. The income on y, it's cutting where? Y is cutting at 10 and x is cutting at 20. So increase in income has caused a shift to the right. Okay? So suppose we're told that income now decreased from 100 to 50 kwacha. Income 3 is 50 kwacha. What will happen? We're going to put 50 is equal to 10x plus what? 20y. So we divide now. Well, look at the x-axis, 10 into 50 is 5. Well, look at the y-axis, 20 into 50 is 2.5. So y will be 2.5 and x will be at what? 5. So it will shrink in what? It will shift to the left, 2.5. And here it will be 5. Okay? So this is because income has become reduced. Now, at D, suppose from the original that we had here, it was starting at what? 5 and 10. So suppose instead here, our price of X has increased from 10 kwacha to 20 kwacha. Everything else remaining the same. What becomes our new equation? So instead of putting 10x, we're going to put what? 20x plus 20y. We leave the y as it is equal to what? 100. So it will cut the x 20 into its 5. 20 into its 5. So on the y, it will remain the same 5, but on the x, it will shrink because it has become more expensive. So instead of buying 5 units on x, it will now buy, if you're buying 10 units on x, you now start buying what? 5. So it will shrink inwards. So you're going to have this arrangement. So this is a tilt. It's not a shift. Tilt. Okay. Now suppose the price of y. Okay. Instead of increasing the price of y, look at the same price of x. Instead of increasing, the price of x now has become cheaper from 10 to 5 kwacha. What do you think will happen? Is it tilt inwards or outwards? We're going to have
The
5.
price, if the price reduces, it will be inside.
It will tilt outward, meaning you're going to afford more. Okay. So good x, for instance,
Okay.
let's take x is an apple. You buy apples, a pack of apples at 50 kwacha in ShopRite. And now you discover that they are doing a promotion. And usually every month you buy how many apples? You buy maybe 5 packs, 50 kwacha. But the price of apples has now reduced to 25 kwacha. So instead of buying 5 packs, you buy what? 10 packs. So it will tilt outward to accommodate more. So 5 into 100, that we get 20. And 20 into 100, it is 5. So you see here, since the price of bananas will still remain the same, it will still be at 5. But apples, it will tilt outwards. You're going to buy more. From the 10, it will be now 20 from this calculation here. So the principle here, basically, we are trying to investigate is consumer behavior. That as you increase on the prices of any particular good, there'll be a tilt on that rotation. But if you're going to increase or decrease income, there'll be a shift. So this is what will happen also for the price of good wine. So there's this tilt here. Okay, if the original is at A, without even giving figures, you tell me what do you think happened for us to go to B from A? And what do you think happened for us to go to C? So if A was original, the graph would have tilted downwards because good Y became expensive. If A was original, the graph would have tilted upwards because good Y could have become what? Cheaper. The price would have reduced. Again, if this was our A, explain the movement to B and the movement to C. So this course is more about principles. So if it moved from A to C, it means the good X could have become expensive. So meaning instead of affording 10, you're now affording less to 5. But the movement from A to B means that price of good X became what? Cheaper, making the consumer afford more units from good, from 10 units to 20 units. Are you getting the principle?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
I am. And
Uh,
those are important principles. Yeah.
yes, very important. Yes. So I could continue over and over, but I am sure you've gotten what I'm trying to say, right?
Yes, yes. I'll play the videos again.
Okay. So more than just playing the videos, I really want you to understand even as I teach here, so that we, if possible, don't even go back because you'd have understood. All right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
please maximize learning as much as possible when a lecturer is teaching. All right. So you get it more. So now, having explained the movement, we shall now go to demand coming up with what is called the price competition curve. Okay. What happens when we're plotting the individual demand curve? So we are dealing with normal goods here. We are dealing with goods that we consume on a daily basis. So consumer equilibrium occurs when the budget line is kissing the indifference curve. So I mentioned earlier to say it is very important to understand that you want to maximize your satisfaction. There should be a point where the optimum bundle will occur. So the optimum bundle will occur at this point here. This point is called the optimum bundle. So the budget line will touch the indifference curve at this point B. So to maximize utility or marginal utility of X over the price of X is equal to marginal utility of Y over price of Y. So I'll teach you briefly some calculus for you to understand what is happening. If U is equal to 5x to the power 4, when you differentiate it is du over dx. This is called the marginal utility of X. So using the power rule, we're simply going to multiply the numbers. 5 times 4 is 20. Then you subtract 1 from the power. 4 minus 1 is 3. So you need to know how to differentiate these figures here. Let's start firstly. So 6x4, 5x3, 4x2, 2x10. Let's differentiate these together. What's the derivative of 6x4? Multiply the numbers and subtract 1 from the power. So this becomes what? 24x what? 24x3. Okay? How did I get that? I multiply 4 times 6 is 24, then subtract 1 from the 4. That is how I got the 3 there. So help me, this one. 5x3. What do you get? 15x2. Is it correct? I'm trying to teach you how to differentiate the easiest way. So 3 times 5 is 15. Subtract 1 from there is 2. About 4x2, what do we get? 8x1. Never write 1, it's invisible. About 2x, there's an invisible one there. So 2x is simply 2. 10x is simply 10. About 10, I have a 0 here, right? So that's how we differentiate. Let's do more differentiation together. 10x, 6, 7x5, 4x, 8x2, and 100. So what is 10x6? Quickly. 10x6 is what? Anyone? 10x6.
60 power 5.
Yes, 60x5. How about 7x5?
35 power 4.
That's 5x4. How about 4x? 4. How
That's 4.
about x?
Yeah.
8x2?
That's 16.
And
X
just 100?
0.
0. Okay. So at least I'm happy so far with your differentiation skills. So now let's go to differentiating a little bit complex dif differentials with powers. Okay, so we go to differentiating because I need you to understand how to apply the Cobb-Douglas theory and how to come up with the Lagrangian multipliers. So if that is clear, I'll quickly give you a few questions for now. The lines that join points that offer the same utility, what are they called? What are the lines that join points that offer the same utility? Called in different scales. Okay. Which point maximizes satisfaction? Point A, point B, point C. A, B, and C. It's point B. Why? Because that's where marginal utility of X over the price of X is equal to the marginal utility of Y over the price of Y. What are some of the properties of indifferent scales? They're parallel to each other. They're concave to the origin. They're convex to the origin. The indifferent scale on the right offers higher utility than on the left. Okay, so that is what else did we say? Um, when there is an increase in price of one good, what happens? There'll be a tilt which will cause a decrease in consumption of that particular good. So we'll look at the income effect and how we maximize utility. We'll look at our principles as follows. What types of goods do we have? What are given goods? What are normal goods? And also the effects that we have. So you must understand that consumer choice theory helps us understand how goods respond to the changes in income and in prices. So these goods can be categorized in normal, inferior, or even given goods. So the normal goods are the goods whose demand increases when income increases. The demand decreases when income decreases. So the relationship is that as price goes up, the quantity demanded also rises. So it has If the price falls, quantity demanded rises. That's a normal good. So it has a downsloping curve. All right. So example is rice, fruits, clothing, meals. So they have a downsloping tendency. So this downsloping curve is what also makes the budget line. Then we also have what are called inferior goods. Inferior goods are goods for which demand decreases as income increases. It's opposite with normal goods. So the relationship still follows the law of demand, which is downsloping, but income changes in reverse behavior. For instance, cheap bread, second-hand clothes, local beer to premium beer. So if your income goes up, you demand less of these particulars. So it is important in managerial economics because we need to understand when the demand for inferior goods will shrink. So firms must anticipate these shifts to prepare for substitutes. So if they're not doing fine, the firm will be buying second-hand furniture, but when there's donor funding, they will shift. Then we also have another kind of food, which is called a giffen good. A giffen good is a rare case where income effect is strong yet negative. It outweighs the substitution effect. It leads to a downward sloping demand curve. So when the price of staple food will go up, the poor households cannot afford a mealie meal. Okay, so they cannot afford better substitutes. So they have to cut back on luxurious or staple items, or even uh, buy more of the staple. Okay, so are we together? So these are the types of goods that you need to know. So you need to understand the theoretical aspect, um, so that as the questions come, you're able to understand. Then let's look at the substitution effect and the income effect. What are these two effects? So the substitution effect and income effect, these are reactions of consumers to the prices. Um, so we have what we call the substitution effect. So when the price of a good falls, what happens? It will become cheaper relative to the other goods. So what will happen to you and me as consumers? We'll substitute it for something that is more expensive. So it is always positive. Consumers are rational in behavior. They want to buy it cheaper. So if the price of chicken falls down relatively to beef, households will substitute chicken for beef. So the budget line will rotate outwards. So the movement along the indifference curve will show the substitution effect. So we also have the income effect. It has to do with real income. What happens when the income goes up and you buy more of that particular good, it becomes a normal good. So income effect is negative when we're dealing with an inferior good because the demand for inferior good will decrease as income goes up. So income effect. So the normal goods, when you have a positive, it means you demand more of the good as your income